Welcome to another tutorial, guys. I will be recreating this Pinterest inspired two-piece. If you'd like to make one for yourself, please keep watching. I'll start off by marking a starting line, which is also my waistline. I will get my crotch depth and the rest of the paper would be for my length. I'll put the same figure on the other side and connect. Now on the crotch line, I'm going to mark my hip circumference divided by 4, and I'll put the same figure on the waistline and I'll connect these 2 points together. Now from this line here, I'm going to mark down my waist circumference divided by 4 and I'll connect that to the crotch line. To get the crotch extension, I'll divide my hip circumference by 20 and I have about 2.5. I'll go up by 3 inches and I'll connect these 2 points together. From the crotch line, I'll come down by 3 inches and this will be my thigh line. From the waistline, I'll go down and mark my knee line. Now I'm going to measure what I have on my crotch line, and I have 14 inches. So I'm going to divide that by 2, which is going to give me 7 inches. Now I'll mark 7 inches from the top of this pattern to the bottom of the pattern. The next thing I'll do is measure my thigh circumference, and I have 26 inches. So I'll divide that by 2 and I have 13 inches. I'm going to divide that 13 by 2 again. And I have 6.5 inches. So now I'm going to take that 6.5 inches and place it on that center line. I'll mark the beginning of the tape and mark 13 inches. So whatever figure you get after dividing the circumference of your thigh, that is what you're going to mark down. I'll just do the same thing on the knee line and also do the same thing for the bottom part of the pants. So after doing that, I decided that I want my pants to be a bit tight. So I'm going to come in by 1 inch from this point that I took here. So coming by 1 inch on both sides. I'll also do the same thing for the bottom part here. Now I'm just going to connect all the points together. Okay, so I need to measure what I have here so I know how much extra I need to add on my fabric. I'll be adding about 10 inches extra and I'll cut. Moving on to the back pattern, I'm going to take a fresh piece of paper and I would lay my front piece on top like this and just tape that down. The next thing I'll do is extend my crotch line. For the back crotch extension, where the front ends, I would go out by 2 inches. Now on the waistline, from this point here, I'm going to come inward by 2 inches. And from that point, I'll go up by 1 inch, which is what I have as the total on my paper. So I'm just going to extend this line here. Now from this very edge where the front ends, I would come out by 2 inches. Now I'm going to connect this point to this point. Now I'll connect my new waistline to the crotch line. Now I'm going to create the back crotch curve, and to do this, from this point here, I'll come down by 1/2 inch and then I'll trace out the front curve here, and then I would connect that to this point. For the final step, I'm going to connect the crotch into the thigh. And that's it for the trouser pattern. This is my back piece, and I'm also going to indicate that I have no sewing allowance added to this pattern. Now I'm going to move on to drafting the pattern for the top. I'll begin by marking a starting line. I'm going to place 7 inches on that starting line because that's where I want my top to start from. The top of the tape will serve as the shoulder. So from that point, I'm going to go ahead and mark my bust line and mark my under bust line, my waistline, and I'll mark the length of my top. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and I'm going to connect. The first thing I'll do is measure my across front chest, and I have 20 inches. I'll divide that by 2. I have 10 inches, so I'm going to place 10 inches down on the first line. Now on the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4. I'll mark my nip to nip measurement, and I'll connect the points together. On the waistline, I'll mark half an inch on both sides, and that will serve as my waist dart. I'll also mark half an inch on both sides on the under bust line, and the bust line I'll come down by 1.5 inches. I'll go up by 1.5 inches. If you're not that busty, please use 1 inch. On the upper chest here, I'll mark my round bust circumference divided by 4. I'm going to find out what I have in between these 2 points. I have 1.5 inches. I'll divide 1.5 by 2, which will give me 0.75. So I'm going to mark that on both sides of this line here. Now I'll connect all the points together. To complete my dart, I'll come down by 5 inches from the waistline. The 1 inch that I used here for dart, I'm going to replace it back here, and then I'll go ahead and add my sewing allowance. I'll also add my sewing allowance up here. And on the hip line, I'll mark my hip circumference divided by 4. From that point, I'm going to add 1.5 inches to create that A-line effect, and then I'll add my sewing allowance. From the end here, I'll go up by 1 inch and connect into the hip line. Now from my new line, I'll add my hem allowance. Moving on to the back pattern, I'll start by marking 1 inch, and this is going to serve as my zip allowance. So just like the front, I'm going to get a starting line, and this line is going to be the upper chest line. I'll place 7 inches on that line, and I marked the bust line, but I don't need the bust line, so I'm going to go ahead and mark my waistline, and then I'll mark the length of the top. I'll repeat the same thing on the other side, and I'll connect. Now I'm going to take my across back measurement, which is 19, and I'll divide that by 2, just the same way I did in the front, and I have 9.5. So I'm going to mark 9.5 on this line here. On the waistline, I'll mark my waist circumference divided by 4, and the hip line, I'll mark hip circumference divided by 4, and add the same 1.5 I added in front. I'm going to mark my knee to knee measurement from the top to bottom and connect those 2 points together. On the waistline, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides, and that will be for my waist dart. I'll also mark 1/2 inch on both sides on the chest line here. I'll connect the points together. I'll extend the dart by 5 inches and connect. I'm going to return the 1 inch that I used for darts back here, and at the top here I'm also going to return that 1 inch to the side. At the center front of the chest line, I'll come down by 1.5 inches so I can create a slight curve at the back. I'm going to connect that into the side. Afterwards, I'll add my sewing allowance to the chest line, waistline and hip line, and I'll connect. Just like the front, I'll go up by 1 inch and I'll connect that into the hip line. From my new line, I'm going to come down and mark 1 inch, and this is going to serve as my hem allowance. Now I'm going to contour the back waistline. So I'm going to go in 1/2 inch and I'll connect that to the new back line here, and also connect that to the hip line, and then I'll add my zip allowance again. The pants are very easy to sew, so I'm just going to start off with that one. So taking my back piece here, I'm going to attach the zip, and I'll stop somewhere here and then close up the remaining part. I'll also do the same thing for the front piece, but for the front piece I'm going to close up this corner completely. Alright, so after closing up the zip, this is what it looks like. The next thing I'll do is take my front piece and right sides together. I'll close up the side seam, and I'll close up the crotch area and finish up my waist. Now moving on to the top, I have my front piece here. I'm going to open up the center front. I'll also open up the sides and I'll join them together. So after joining it together, this is what it looks like. I've gone ahead to also join the back together. So now right sides together, I'm going to close the side seam. After doing that, this is what it'll come out looking like. I did the exact same thing for my lining piece. Now I'm going to place them right sides together and I'll sew along the 4 corners, but I'm going to leave a space, a small space open, so I'm able to flip this to the right side. And when I'm done, I'll close it up. So this is the small space I'm going to leave here. I'm just going to start in front and continue sewing. So I've turned my top out through that small space, so now I'm just going to close it up. And that's it for the tutorial, guys. I really enjoyed making this outfit. I love it so much. If you enjoyed this video and if you want to see more videos, please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.